Hello, good evening. So, as I told you in the class, I'm about to discuss morphology. So, what exactly is morphology? What do you understand by the term? First of all, morphology is a term which is also used in medical sciences, where they talk about the shape of the body, the shape of the bones. Morph simply means shape. So we are talking about the shape of words in languages. Okay. So many people say that a word is not the unit of a language. Words in isolation mean very little. We know that. You know that a word, when you speak it in isolation, without combining it with other words, without using proper syntax, a word doesn't mean much. Only when you say something like I had muffins for breakfast or I had puttu for breakfast, your utterance makes sense. Puttu is a word, breakfast is another word, I is another word, had is the past tense of have. All this we know. But ultimately it is a sentence that makes sense, some people say. But we are also bothered about words because words have a way of organizing themselves. And not only that, words have a way of organizing themselves into proper shapes. Languages of the world are sometimes divided on the basis of morphological principles. എങ്ങനെയാണ് വാക്കുകൾ മറ്റു വാക്കുകളുമായിട്ട് ചേരുന്നത് എന്നത് വെച്ചിട്ടാണ് ഭാഷകൾ വേർതിരിക്കുന്നത്. We divide languages that way. Okay, I'll give you an example. Take English, for example. In English, if you want to say something like I fell into the gutter. So I fell into the gutter. Gutter plus into make what we in Malayalam say Ovijalil. The il is attached to Ovijal in Malayalam. So I fell into a gutter. Njan Ovijalil veenu in Malayalam. So these are two different types of organizing a language. One, the particle which connects one word to another. Ovijalil veenu. Ovijal plus veenu. Gutter plus fell. This preposition into is separate. It stands separate from the head word, which is gutter. So into the gutter. In Malayalam, Ovijalil. In Hindi, what would you call Ovijal? Sakra. Sakra me. Okay. Where the me is attached to sakra, it is written together. Right. So, yeah. We talk about how words are combined. How words are combined in particular languages. So English and Malayalam have two different morphologies. And if you take Chinese, for example, in Chinese, even the particle or preposition we call into is a separate word. Okay. With the same status as the word gutter. So gutter, we attach different status to these words. Okay. One is a preposition, we give it less importance than gutter. In Chinese, each word is separate. Okay. You have to look at them in combination. So into has the same status as gutter. So Chinese is one type of language. Such languages are called isolating. English is almost like that, you can say, because we don't write these words together into the gutter. into, and ghat. They are written as separate words. Okay, they are written as separate words, and the only thing is we attach more importance to ghat than into. Prepositions, interjunctions, 4 types of words we have studied. In traditional grammar, 4 types of words are important. The less important words are things like conjunctions, and, or prepositions, into, at, in, of, etc. So this is probably why we say English is a particular kind of language. I say slightly different from Chinese. Right. But there are other ways in which we find differences between languages. For example, I have already given you the example of Malayalam, where Malayalam is called an inflected language, highly inflected language. English is also inflected, we know. I'm coming to that. But in Malayalam, generally you find that prepositions are attached to nouns. Okay. In English also, but less in English than in Malayalam. So Malayalam is called an inflectional language. Hindi is an inflectional language. Okay. Gujarati is an inflectional language. Tamil is an inflectional language. Okay. So did you get the point? The morphology of a language decides to which class it should be assigned in typical categories of languages. Okay. So this is one thing. A third type of languages are called agglutinative languages. Remember, I am giving you these categories as possible categories. Okay. There are slightly fuzzy edges. Overlap. That's what I am trying to say. Right. So in German, for example, I think in the first sem I showed you a clip in which you have a word which is as long as a paragraph. So in some languages it is possible to combine a large number of words into a big compound. Malayalam used to be like that. For example, a word like parayadirikkunnidatholam. Parayadirikkunnidatholam. നീ അത് പറയാതിരിക്കുന്നിടത്തോളം എനിക്കൊന്നും ചെയ്യാൻ കഴിയില്ല. See this? Now I think very few people write it as one word. They write പറയാതെ ഇരിക്കുന്ന ഇടത്തോളം. Sometimes they combine ഇരിക്കുന്നിടത്തോളം, but they don't add പറയാതെ. So what is happening here? Malayalam, which had some properties of an agglutinative language like German, is changing into an inflectional language. Means less number of large compounds or less number of words in a compound. Okay. So I think you get the point. You can classify a language according to its morphology. How much does a language allow its words to combine, and in what ways? Get the point? Right. Now, we are looking at some ways in which languages have words or meaningful units arranged and formed. We are going to look at that. Alright. Now, many of you will say that the smallest unit of a language is a word, which is not strictly speaking correct. Linguists call it a morpheme, M-O-R-P-H-E-M-E, the smallest meaningful unit of a language, a morpheme. So, can you give an example for a morpheme? I'll give you an example for a morpheme. For example, urgent, urgently, you add an ly. This ly is a morpheme. Okay. So immediately, as soon as I said urgently, you must have recognized that urgent and li are not the same kind of morphemes. How are they different? They are different in their status as morphemes. For example, if you simply say li, doesn't make any sense. It's a particle which has some meaning attached to it, but its meaning becomes clear when you add it to urgent, urgently. Happier, the ER in happier, happy, happier. So only if you have happy attached to you get the meaning, the sense of happier. Happy, happier, comparative degree. Happier, happy, happier, happiest. The ST in EST in happiest is also a kind of morpheme. What is it called? It's called a bound morpheme. So bound morphemes and free morphemes. Okay. So all these are problematic areas. As soon as you start investigating them, you have a number of doubts. I'm just saying this is the conventional way in which we look at words or morphemes in a language, right? So bound morphemes, free morphemes. Free morphemes which are said to make a meaning by themselves. Bound morphemes which cannot make meaning, or at least much meaning, without being attached to free morphemes. So this is the first thing that you remember. And that's why one of the reasons why they are called morphemes. Okay, shapes, you can say. Word shapes. Smallest meaningful shape in a language. In language substance is a morpheme. And there are two types of morphemes. Bound and free morphemes. Okay. Now, what are the ways, I'll speak more about this when I come to word formation. I'm coming to word formation at the end. Right. So, the next question is, how do you look at words? Their hierarchical shapes. What is called a hierarchical shape? A hierarchical shape is the word with, you start with the, at the top. The word with all its attachments. Okay. Unhappier. Unhappier. Okay. Unhappier. You immediately recognize three morphemes. Un, happy, and ER. But linguists have another way of looking at words or morphemes. They go to what is called a root. So roots are things which you cannot, which a layman cannot recognize. For example, when you say Vidya in Malayalam or Sanskrit, linguists will tell you there is a root word called with. Okay. Or when you say vittu, okay, perfectly good word. Okay. Adiyamatu. Linguists will tell you there is a root called vit, from which a stem is formed. Okay. So what we today look up as words are actually stems. And നമുക്ക് കാണാൻ പറ്റുന്ന രൂപത്തിലുള്ള, അതായത് നമ്മൾ തിരിച്ചറിയുന്ന തരത്തിലുള്ള വാക്കുകളെയാണ് എന്ത് പറയുന്നത്? Stems. Okay. So roots are things which lie underground. We don't recognize roots. Stems are things which see on the surface. Thadi, വാഴത്തടി, തെങ്ങിൻ്റെ തടി, അതിനൊക്കെയാണ് സ്റ്റെം എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. പിന്നെ നമുക്കറിയാം അതിൽ ശാഖകളുണ്ട്, ബ്രാഞ്ചസ്. ഓക്കെ, leaves, flowers, whatever you find, what you find. So the stem is what we normally find as a word. And നമുക്ക് അതിൻ്റെ വേര് അന്വേഷിച്ച് പോയിട്ടൊരു കാര്യമില്ല. Okay. When you say, for example, translate, perfectly good word. But linguists will tell you there are this word comes from two roots. Trans means across and late means take. So every single word that we have today, scientists are able to find, linguists are able to find their roots. Okay, some from where the words originated. എന്നിട്ട് പിന്നെ അത് അതിനെ it has taken concrete shape. Okay, so I have given you 2 examples with this one root, and if you take any word and look it up in the dictionary, you'll find a root given. Okay, create, some root will be found. So the stem is what we are concerned with. Okay, now the stem often does not stand alone. We know that something gets attached to it. So what are the things that get attached to stems in morphology? One of them is a prefix. A prefix is what you attach to a stem. Okay, in a word like unhappy, un is a prefix, and you also have a suffix like happily. The ly is a suffix. So prefix, suffix. There is another kind of morpheme which is added to a word, not at the beginning or the end, but right at the middle. This is called infix. English and Malayalam doesn't have infixes, but Arabic has. So a word like katab, if you put e in between, it becomes kitab, kutubun. So what you do is you insert sounds in the middle. So for example, Yehovah in Hebrew, it is written as just Yehovah, and you add the vowels at various places and you get a different word. So prefixes, infixes, suffixes, 3 kinds of morphemes which are added, 3 kinds of bound morphemes which are added to free morphemes or stems, you find. So in English there are only 2. Okay, now if you take suffixes or prefixes, they are used for various purposes. Okay, for example, if you have a word like friendly, the ly is attached to friend, and you get a word whose status is different, ly, and you get a word like let us say Teresa. If you add apostrophe s, Teresa's, it becomes a different kind of word. It is called the genitive suffix. Okay, its word class is changed. Okay, so on the other hand, you have suffixes like ship, ship, friendship, which does not change the class of the word. Friend is a noun, friendship is a noun, right? So these 2 types of suffixes exist in languages. And what is this process called of attaching suffixes to words? This process is called inflection. And inflection is sometimes used to indicate only those suffixes which change the class of the word from a noun to an adjective. Friend, friendly. Okay, Teresa, Teresa's. Okay. And you can also consider a suffix like ing. which you add to a word like ring or walk or talking. This is another kind of inflection, ing, using ing to change the tense form of the word. So inflections are either less or more in languages. There are heavily inflected languages. Okay, inflected languages like German or Old English. We went through that, remember. From a heavily inflected language, English changed to a much less inflected language. Okay, meaning some words, some classes of words discontinued being inflected. Like, I'll give you an example. Okay, so in English, for example, verbs are not inflected for gender. So whether it is I, you, he, she, they, we have the same shape for the verb. Okay, I came, she came, they came, he came. But not all languages behave like this. Hindi, for example, ought to have has different constructions. Like मैं ऐसा करता हूँ हर रोज, मैं ऐसी करती हूँ हर रोज. Okay, मैं वादा करता हूँ, मैं करती हूँ. Depending upon the gender of the subject, right? And even inanimate objects have gender in Hindi. So the verb changes according to the gender. In some languages, even adjectives change. In Hindi also, acha, achi. Okay. Bura, buri. Okay. So this, by this property also, one can look at the morphological property, morphological characteristic of a language, whether it can inflect, whether such inflections exist in the language or not. Right. So this is another way to look at the morphological characteristic of a language. Again, you have what are called, I said that in the beginning, rules of compounding, meaning how many words can be joined together to form a big word. There are differences in languages. English allows maybe 2 or 3. German can allow 15, 20 or more. Okay. Chinese does not allow any combination. The words exist separately, and you have to say them separately. And the Chinese writing system is different from English. In English, we have an alphabetical writing system. In Chinese, it is logographic or ideographic, meaning many words can be written together as one character. It's not called an alphabet. Or even in Malayalam, we have what is called a syllabic writing system. In English, if you want to write cat, C-A-T. In Malayalam, if you want to write veedu, V and E are combined into one letter. This is called a syllabic system of writing. Alright, so what I'm trying to say is that in morphology, the number of words that can be combined to form one large word is heavily restricted in some languages. You can't combine so many words. You're not allowed to do that. Okay. Now, at this point, I'll break off and ask you to look at the origin of languages. Okay. So, when language originated, we had a look at it both in the first sem and again here at the beginning of the third sem. I said that languages have peculiar ways of originating and mostly impelled by necessity. So, of course, we can find that the primitive men, when they started talking, they used only single words. Okay. So, we still use single words. When our speech fails us or when we are emotionally written. Okay. So in that film Agni Nakshatram, who is it? Tilagan says, Rajan P. Dev says, both. Whereas he means something like, look, there is a buffalo there. So he uses just this one word. Okay. Eduk. Okay. Again, only one word. So primitive men probably used single word expressions in the beginning. He could make meaning with these single expressions. And there was a what is called a consensus of meaning within the tribe. So, and the occasions for language were few. Okay. They wouldn't be discussing, let us say, Wordsworth's poetry or such more complicated subjects. Instead, they would be discussing something like hunting a bison, which one member of the tribe just saw running across. Right. So, in this way, in looking at a language, we try to reach out to its origin, because we are trying to look at its morphology, morphological accumulation, how language became so complicated. So instead of saying both, we say pothinu nokku, or poth odikku. So this is what we mean, right? But we say it with a single word. So we also have to look at morphology in that sense. Okay. So let us come back. Let's come back to discussing how morphology operates in languages. Okay. So we saw that there is something called a root, which ordinary people do not know, but what linguists find out in investigating the origin of a word. Stem we know. Okay. The word in isolation, as we find in a dictionary or on a page or in an article that you write, you have what is called a word stem. And then you add affixes. Remember the word. F-F-I-X-E-S, affixes. And affixes we find are of three types. Prefix, suffix, and infix. And we find that suffixes or prefixes are added sometimes to change the class of the word, sometimes the word will remain the same even if they are added. And we also looked at how the number of words that can combine into a single word is restricted in languages. Not all languages allow free combination of words. And what kind of words can combine with another. Okay. So in English, for example, you can say something like Broadway, which is a combination of two words. Broad, which is an adjective, and way, which is a noun. So can you do this in Malayalam? Okay. But generally such combinations are rare. Okay. Pachap, okay, sometimes. Okay, an adjective can combine with a noun, pachanotu. But not in the same way that such combinations occur in English. Okay. One of the words will definitely be an adjective. Two nouns combining are rare, except when one of the nouns is an adjective. Okay. Right. Alright. In any case, when two words combine, one of the words normally take on the characteristic of an adjective. Okay. Pattu kuppayam. If you combine these two words, what happens is one of them is an adjective. Pattu is an adjective, kuppayam is the noun. Okay. So now you have a rough idea about morphology, how words are formed, how a word is not the smallest unit of any language. It is rather what we call a morpheme. Okay, and you have basically morphemes of two types. Okay, these are, as I said at the beginning, conventional. It's very difficult to say that one word doesn't mean anything. It does. Okay. Only thing is we identify conventionally that some words mean less than others. So you have a bound morpheme and a free morpheme. I've just given you a rough idea about morphemes or morphology in general and how it operates in English. Now, let's look at just a minute. Yeah, just let's look at how words are formed in the language. I've already given you one example, compounding. Okay, how two words combine into one. Okay, now in morphology we also look at how the words are written, how compounds are written. Okay, so here in this essay, this small material that I have with me, you have a number of examples given. You have a compound like fireplace, F-I-R-E-P. What is a fireplace, by the way? We don't have it here. There is a Malayalam word actually, Neripodu, where you light a fire within the house to keep yourself warm. It's called a fireplace. Alright. Now, fireplace is written with no hyphen in between. F-I-R-P-L-E-P-L-A-S-E. You can write these two words separately also. You have a fire, you have a place. But fireplace becomes a place where you light fires within the house. Okay. Whereas, if you have a word like, very common now, e-ticket. You don't have to buy a ticket by hand. You don't have to have a solid printed ticket. Instead, if you pay money through an app or if you pay through net banking, you get a ticket delivered to your mobile or your lap or whatever instrument you are using. And this is called an e-ticket. You can take this to a cinema and you can show this. They'll let you in. This is called an e-ticket, is written with a hyphen between e and ticket. Similarly, pickup. Pickup, not the combination that you have in a sentence like, I don't like to pick up strangers, where pick and up are separate. It's a phrasal verb, pick up. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something like a pickup truck, a huge truck which contains materials. It can be called a pickup truck. Okay, and some odd words like I'll say, okay, I think you need a talking to. Okay. I think you need a dusting off. D-U-S-T-I-N-G hyphen O-F-F, where the hyphen functions as a kind of marker, showing that originally this was something like a phrasal word, but you are using it as a noun. Okay, you can say dust off, okay, or brush off. Okay, somebody simply brushed it off, okay, without listening to you. So you can say brush off. Okay, so I think you badly needed a brush off. You are too proud, you say. Okay, you're too proud, so proud that people have got tired of you. So you needed this. You needed somebody to brush you off. So you make it as make it a noun. You say brush off, talking to. Okay. So you have a problem, student in the classroom. Okay. And somebody complains to me. I said, okay, well, it looks like he needs a talking to, talking hyphen to, which means he needs to be called in and he has to be told certain things. So talking to is written with a hyphen between talking and to. You get this point. And there is a tendency in English that which you have to look at, of words combining. What happens is, when words combine, they start off as separate words. Headmaster. Okay. After some time, a hyphen appears between head and master. Okay. It's like, an engagement and a marriage. You are two different individuals. You get engaged, and finally you are married. When you're married, what happens is these two words become one. The hyphen disappears. So headmaster. Okay. This is a trend in English. Not just in English, many other languages. In Malayalam, it is the other way around. Interesting. When you write Pradhana Mantri, we still don't use a hyphen or a space between the two. But when we write Pradhana Uddesham, we write them as separated. But where the combination rules allow you to write it as Pradhana Uddesham. Okay. Pradhana Ingin, so many words which you can write as a combined word. But the trend in English is to write these words separately. More and more words are getting separated. Okay. So you can say that Malayalam is moving from one category of languages to another. What I said in the beginning, typology. Right. So these are very interesting facts. Only for people who are interested in wayside, views. As you pass along the road, some people don't look either way. They just walk out. Other people who are more relaxed, they stare at billboards, they stare at shops, they look at people, and they notice a number of things. So these linguistic tidbits are interesting for people who are such relaxed wayfarers, who are not in a hurry, to get something. Okay. So what they do is they just look around. As you, for instance, go to Sweet Meat Street, പോകുമ്പോൾ എസ്.കെ. പൊറ്റക്കാടിൻ്റെ പ്രതിമ കാണാം, പിന്നെ കുറേ ആൾക്കാർ ഇങ്ങനെ സീറ്റുകളിലൊക്കെ ഇരിക്കുന്ന കാണാം, ഷോപ്പിംഗ് ബാഗുമായിട്ട് പിടിച്ചു വരുന്ന ആൾക്കാരെ കാണാം, ഒരു പണിയില്ലാതെ നിൽക്കുന്ന ആൾക്കാരെ. So many different kinds of people on the street. So you notice all of them, and you derive some kind of amusement for this. So this is more than that. This is part of your consciousness of your heritage. ഇപ്പോൾ നമ്മളെ എങ്ങനെയുള്ള ജീവിതം എങ്ങനെയാണ് ഉണ്ടായത്, സംസ്കാരം എങ്ങനെയുണ്ട്, how our culture developed. അതിൻ്റെ ഭാഗമാണ് ഭാഷ. So when you combine a word in English, this is the process by which words are combined. Okay. And as I said, one of them can be an adjective, another can be a noun, both of them can be nouns. Okay. Mailman, if you say, the person who brings your mail or post. Okay. Talking to, one of them is a noun, the other is a preposition which you add to it, and it's something like a phrasal verb. Talking to, brushing off. Okay. Looking into. Now this problem needs looking into. You see. Okay, I think I'll look into it tomorrow. What you brought in just now is a problem which needs looking into, and I'll be doing it tomorrow, I'll say. Right. So this is about compounds. We are looking at all kinds of ways in which words are formed. Another type of word problem, which is actually very silly, but we make such words, right? For example, in English there are plenty. Okay. Teeny weeny, meaning small. Okay. Or tutti, tootsie wootsy. Okay. And in Malayalam, of course, not many, but we do have such rhyming words. Okay. Like mannum chanam. Okay. It doesn't mean anything. They are words which simply rhyme. And when we speak very colloquially, നീ ഉപ്പേരിയും കിപ്പേരിയും മുറിച്ച് സമയം കളയണം. Rhyming words. One of them nonsensical and the other which makes sense. English has a large number of such words. Tootsie wootsie, higgledy piggledy, okay, piggy wiggy, okay, what parents say when they speak to their children. Achalum muchalum. You will find such expressions in Bashir. Abdul Qadirne, he was caught stealing sugar. അപ്പോൾ ഉമ്മ അവനെ അച്ചാലും മുച്ചാലും അടിച്ചു. These are rhyming words. So Malayalam also has such. So this is a way in which words are not simply for the rhyme in it. It's in very interesting to listen to such rhyming words. Okay, Falana Dingana in Gujarati. Okay, meaning trinkets or small objects. Okay, of course it can indicate large objects also. Okay, Malayalam lottu lodukku again in Bashir. So these are rhyming words, rhyming compounds, and sometimes in words like tick-tock, sound of a clock. Okay, where excuse me. So it's not simply rhyming, but you have the forward motion and the backward motion. One of them is identified as tick, and the other tock. And of course, how a bell rings, ding dong. So this is one way of word formation. And derivation, I have already said, how you can add morphemes to a root. Derivation and affixation, that I have already told you. Blending is a very interesting kind of word formation, where two words they don't exist as separate. You can't identify them, but they blend into each other. Like for example, brunch, brunch, which is a blending of breakfast and lunch. Right? It's a blended word. Okay, and you have in this example I find documentary is parodied as mockumentary. Well, a combination of mocking and documentary. Okay, sometimes you have such films, short films, which are actually parodies. Okay, and glitterati, not very common but used, such as the VIPs, very show-off people who appear at a party, for example. They are sometimes called glitterati, and generally related to literature. Okay, the KLF is a good example. Kerala Literary Festival, held at Kozhikode every year. So you can say when you stepped into the compound, you started seeing a lot of glitterati, glittering literators. Okay, not just women, men also, appearing in all kinds of fancy dress, jubba, and hairstyles, various hairstyles. So you can call them glitterati, a combination of glitter and literati. Okay. So there are many such examples. You can look them up. Okay. And in Gulliver's Travels, Jonathan Swift's novel, you find many such coinages. Gallop and triumph. Okay. Okay, you can go on finding such blended words. Okay. Mocktail. Okay, I found this word here. Mocktail. Okay. Mock and cocktail. Okay, that's something which doesn't do the work of cocktail. People make fun of it. It's just mocktail, not cocktail, etc. Now, another kind of word formation is one part is clipped off, clipping. Okay, so you have a large word and one element is clipped, removed. So hamburger is was a well-known word. Today you just say burger. The ham is missing, and for a good reason. People who don't eat pork, flesh of pigs, they can still say that they've just had a burger. It doesn't have ham. Perhaps chicken and even some veg fillings, not necessarily meat, no beef or chicken, just veg, potatoes or other vegetables, mashed potatoes or vegetables. So you call it a burger. So this is called clipping. There are plenty of clippings available, not just burger, something like, for example, a well-known object, and you use only a part of it. Okay, like I'm just trying to find out a word. Here there is an example given: rifle gun. Okay, actually it was a gun which was rifled. Okay, rifled or having a special long barrel with a groove. So we just say rifle. The gun part is removed. Okay, and auto rickshaw, another good example. You can think of that. We simply say auto, leaving out the rickshaw. And even our bus, BUS, once upon a time it was called omnibus. We just say bus. Okay. In the early 20th century novels, you can see the word omnibus. We have removed the omni. We just say bus. Okay. And in Malayalam there are plenty of examples. We just say vandi instead of the original Thivandi. Okay. We just say vandi later. We generally mean a train. It also means a vehicle in another context. But generally when you say vandi later, we don't mean a bus. We mean a train. Thivandi. Thivandi was the original. Kugu Kugu Thivandi, Kugi Payam Thivandi. The nursery rhyme, familiar nursery rhyme will tell you that Thivandi was. This is called clipping. Acronyms are another interesting types of words. Acronyms are just short forms. You take the first letter of 3 or 4 words and form a letter. Like, for example, scuba. The scuba I was telling you about in the last class, which you can use in the Lakshadweep island of Kadamathu. So what is scuba actually? Self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. So you attach this to your back, you can take a dive into the water. And you can go on swimming for some time without thinking of drowning in the sea or filling your lungs with water, because you breathe from this apparatus. And as long as there is oxygen in it, you can continue to swim. So scuba, a radar, RAD, a radio detection and ranging. Plenty of words. NATO, which came into the news recently in the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So this was one of the issues, that Ukraine was poised to join NATO, or so Russia thought. So to prevent that, Russia thought the best method was to frighten them with an invasion. But the war is not ended. The invasion is still not been successful. Right. So NATO. What is NATO? Okay, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. And our own SAARC, South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, SAARC, SAARC. So these are called acronyms. So I have given you some well-known acronyms: SCUBA, Radar, NATO. Okay. BRIC countries, BRIC, Brazil, Russia, India, China, BRIC. Okay, so on. So some acronyms are very popular. We don't recognize them as acronyms, as this radar, which is used both in war and air navigation. So the signal, your radar will pick up an aircraft in the air. Okay, looking at which way it goes. Where in fact locating the aircraft as it flies. Radar does that, right? Gestapo, the notorious Nazi police. Okay, what is that? Geheimstaatspolizei, Gestapo. Okay. RAW, R-A-W, India's secret investigating service, research and analysis wing, RAW. So you can go on finding such acronyms, UNICEF, UNO, United Nations Organization, so on. Okay. Then you have what is called folk etymology. Folk etymology simply means mispronunciation. Okay. So in Chaucer you find a word brid, B-R-I-D, for bird. So in course of time the word changed its shape by popular use. Okay. So I don't know if you can call this a word formation technique at all, but linguists often talk about this. Okay. And you have what is called a loan translation. Loan translation is simply the formation of a word by translating a word, not by adopting it. This is called borrowing. Okay, you can borrow a word. We use many English words. But there is something called loan translation. For example, skyscraper. What is a skyscraper? A skyscraper is a tall building which rises. Burj Khalifa is a skyscraper, you can say. But a skyscraper is not morphologically the same word as Ambara Chumbi. So in Malayalam what they do is they kiss the sky. In English they don't kiss the sky, they don't do it for reasons best known to them. They only scrape the sky or touch the sky, brush against the sky. In Malayalam it is Ambara Chumbi. Okay. And many other words. Mel palam is simply overbridge. Adipalam is underbridge. Right. Simply translating a word. Okay. Sometimes slightly skewed translation, as I told you in this case. Ambara Chumbi, not Ambara Sparshi, skyscraper. A building which rises up into the sky so much so that it looks it's kissing the sky or it's scraping against the sky. Okay. And coinages. Coinages are plenty. It's simply the coining of a new word. Kinasheri, for example, for utopia. An ideal place. A dreamland. And I coined its opposite also. Pekinasheri. Dystopia. Where everything has gone haywire. Okay. Where things have gone from bad to worse. It's a disaster. It's a nightmare. Okay. So I think these are some of the ways in which words are formed in languages, starting with compounding. Compounding is the simplest form of word formation. You combine two words with two words and form a new word. Right. So I think I have given you a basic analysis of morphology, what it means in linguistics. How it sorry, it's a minor accident. The stand fell off. It doesn't matter. So what we are looking at is how how words are formed, not words, how shapes of what are called morphemes are dictated by differently in different languages, how they combine, in what ways they combine, and what shapes they take over a period of time. This is what we discussed just now. So just go through the material I sent you. I think I sent you 2 files. If you haven't got them, I'll check again. I'll send you 2-3 files. Okay. So I think I'll also discuss 2 more topics in the next few days. One of them is semantics, meaning, how meaning is made. 2, Chomsky and linguistics. Chomsky's contributions to linguistics. Right? Good night.